On Friday afternoon, an arbitrator handed down a ruling on forward Yakov Trenin's contract, and this got us thinking. Which Nashville Predators players will fans think are overpaid at the end of next season, and which Preds players may be underpaid after a strong 2022-23 season? Today, I'm joined by On the Forecheck's Jeff Middleton to talk overpaid and underpaid Nashville Predators, all on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Predators, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com, and I am usually joined by my partner in crime, Nick Morgan, but Nick is wrapping up a well-deserved vacation. Today, I am going to be joined by our co-worker at On the Forecheck, Jeff Middleton, and Jeff and I are going to talk about overpaid and underpaid Nashville Predators. But before we dive into all of that, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with more odds, props, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So on Friday, Yakov Trenin's arbitration settlement was announced, and that really kind of got me thinking over the weekend how often fans and media tend to compare a player's performance over the course of a season versus their salary for that season and decide that that player is either overpaid or underpaid. So today I've invited Jeff Middleton from OTF to join me, and we're going to take a look at the Predators roster, and we're going to talk through who we think the Nashville Predators players are that are overpaid or underpaid. So I am joined now by Jeff Middleton, our co-worker and a phenomenal writer at ontheforecheck.com and about a million other places. So Jeff, thank you for joining me to talk overpaid, underpaid Nashville Predators.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the most recent financial move that the Predators made. Of course, on Friday, they announced that the results of the arbitration with Yakov Trenin, $2.4 million for 2 years, 1.7 per year. Going into arbitration, Trenin wanted a 1 year, $2.4 million. The Predators wanted 2 years, $1.35 million. How do you feel about how this all shook out for Yakov Trenin and the Preds?
I mean, I think I like it for both sides. Obviously, Trenin didn't get what he wanted, which, everybody wants higher than.
Yeah. Always ask big.
Yeah, exactly. But I think in terms of value, it's a pretty good deal. Trenin was a huge part of the team's success last year. He was a huge reason the herd line succeeded. Mm-hmm. He scored plenty of goals. He was one of the only stat sheet contributors in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I think 1.3 was low and 2.4 was high. So I like that they, the arbiter came to a middle ground there, because I think that value is perfect for both the player and for the Preds in the long run, I guess, even though it's only a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I like this deal. I think Trenin's a little bit tricky, and I talked about this last week because it's kind of hard to find comparables for him because you look at his stats and maybe they aren't as impressive, but then you look at his general overall contribution. And I think he, like you said, in the playoffs, he was certainly a huge part of the minimal amount of positives that came out of those 4 games. But yeah, I like this deal. I think this is a good deal. I feel like Trenin, if he repeats, next season, the season he has now, I think everybody's going to feel pretty good still with that $1.7 million, a year deal. I think he's right paid, not overpaid, not underpaid. I'd say right paid.
Yeah. And I think it's going to take a lot for him to be considered overpaid. I don't think that what you're going to get with Yakov Trenin. He's going to, if he's not scoring, he's, playing the body, he's playing solid defense. He's what you're getting. And I think a Luke Cunnin-esque year is what he's going to have to be considered overpaid. But even then, I don't think it's going to be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting paid less than Luke Cunnin. So,
Yeah.
I think
We
it's going to take a
don't like
lot.
to talk about those Luke
No,
Cunnin years.
yeah.
that was maybe overpaid, but what we're going to talk about, we won't talk about that. So
No.
another contract recently, of course, was Phillip Forsberg's big contract, $8.5 million contract. And I know, like, look, I was one of the ones where at some points waiting for this deal to get done, it was like, just pay him anything.
Mhm.
Like, give the man a kidney, give him a puppy, pay him whatever. When it all sorted out, how do you feel about Forsberg's deal? Do you think this is an overpay, underpay, or do you think they got this one pretty right?
I mean, I think they got this one right. I think
Mhm.
that honestly, I was expecting more from Forsberg's side. Like, I mean, I can understand why Poile would want 8 to 8.5, but I was surprised when it was reported that he wanted 8.5 or like mid to
Right.
mid 8 range. And because after the year he had, it wouldn't have surprised me at all if he was asking for 9 plus. And I get why David Poile wouldn't sign him to that because Roman Jossi's contract and all that jazz. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're paying him more than Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansen, and he's a better player than them. So I think that they got this one right in terms of balancing staying under Roman Jossi's cap hit while also giving him more than the players that he's better than.
Yeah. Yeah, there was just a little space for them to kind of hit that spot, and they did it. I was surprised. I agree with you. I really felt like Forsberg's camp was going to ask for more, and I feel like he maybe could have gotten more had he gone to free agency. So, I wonder if this is a contract, though, if Phillip Forsberg doesn't repeat this year's performance next season or the season after, is this a contract you think that may come back to haunt David Poile? Or do you think Forsberg is going to retain his value down the road?
I think, every long-term every 8-year contract is
Yeah.
probably going to bite you in one way or another. But, it's what you have to do to get these guys to re-sign. Like, I mean, there's very few players that are going to keep that same value year over year at an $8.5 million, value.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think that Forsberg is a guy that is, more likely than others to kind of keep taking those steps to ensure that his value is, the same or better. I think a guy like Matt Duchene, he's, I've been a big Matt Duchene supporter since he came to the Predators, but, I don't think that he's a consistent 40 goal guy. Like I just
Yeah.
don't, especially at 30 years old or however old he is.
Mhm.
Forsberg is at an age where, he's kind of, and he's in that area where like, I think that an 8x8.5 is, something that could look really good next year. If,
Yeah.
there's always a chance that it looks bad, but I think Forsberg is, not only does he have the skill, but he also, is at that point in his career where I'd be okay with signing him to that.
Yeah. And I think too, it adds value because Forsberg is definitely one of those players that Poile is building around. And not to say anything against Duchene or Johansen, but I think Forsberg is going to be foundational for this team in, long run. So I can see why this is an investment that Poile was willing to make. And I think it would take a lot for fans to feel like Forsberg was overpaid. I think he'd really, again, we go back to the Luke Cunnin year.
Yeah.
That's kind of
It's gonna
where
take
it
a
would have
lot.
to be. It's going to take a lot. Coming up, we are going to talk about two Predators players that always seem to stir the overpaid pot. But first, I want to let you know this episode's brought to you by our partners, Athletic Greens, who have created an incredible product, AG1. If you are anything like me, you have been searching for that perfect combination of vitamins and supplements to boost your energy and improve your immune system. But I know for me, that search feels feels overwhelming. I finally got a chance to try AG1, and in AG1, I found the one product that provides everything all those pills and supplements couldn't. So, what is AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This blend of ingredients supports gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, boosts energy, focus, and recovery. And AG1 is so easy to incorporate into any lifestyle. You just get up in the morning and mix one scoop with a glass of water, shake it up a little bit, and it is ready to go. There's no cutting, measuring, mixing, blending. And here's the thing, it tastes great. Usually green powders taste so bad, it's impossible to make them a habit. But let me tell you, AG1 has this really light, refreshing taste. It's like a little bit tropical vanilla, but just a real easy and delicious flavor. AG1 is a micro habit with big benefits. You will notice a difference in your energy and focus throughout the entire day. There'll be no crash, no afternoon slump, and it costs less than $3 a day. So imagine trying to get all of the vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens for the cost of your daily coffee stop. With Athletic Greens, you are investing in an all-in-one, easy and delicious nutritional insurance. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Athletic Greens, more than 7,000 five-star reviews. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take control over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So, two contracts that the Nashville Predators fans have had some big feelings about are the contracts of Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansen. Jeff and I dive into discussing whether those players are overpaid or underpaid. So, two contracts that Nashville Predators fans have had some really big feelings about for a while are the contracts of Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansen. Both of them are considered consistently overpaid. How do you think last season will affect that perception? Let's start with Matt Duchene.
I mean, Duchene had an incredible year. Like he was, I think he was, he was top 3 best players on the team, and it's not even really a debate. But he, my problem is that while I do think that last year was, he played to a level where his contract was not taken into the equation, that because you didn't have to worry about it.
Yes.
Like I said before, it does, worry me that he is getting older, and as skilled as he is, he's never scored 40 goals before.
Yeah.
And obviously that could change again if he keeps playing with Forsberg and Granlund, because, anything, those guys can make anything happen.
Right.
But, that contract, it looked pretty terrible for the first few years. And I think, as he gets older, it will probably get worse. I don't know how old he'll be when the contract ends exactly. But I assume he'll be older 30s.
Yeah.
So, paying an older 30s Matt Duchene at $8 million is, it's not a great look, but
yeah.
I mean, I think as long as he can be a guy that, as long as he plays well with Forsberg and Granlund and he can score 25, 30 goals and be like a 70-point guy, 65-point guy, I think you can be content with his contract. It's not perfect by any means, but if he can consistently give you that production, then it's probably not something that you're going to be whining about or complaining about.
Yeah. And that was one of those things with Matt Duchene. Anybody, anytime people talked about him prior to this season, it was kind of this, $8 million Matt Duchene. And I think this season will help some of that. I'm interested to see if this season kind of sorts out Matt Duchene and Phillip Forsberg, who makes who better? And of course, Mikael Granlund is the X factor in all of that. I think Mikael Granlund would make me a phenomenal NHL player. But I wonder if we're, as long as they keep that line together, I think it will remain a mystery. But I think it would be really interesting to see, okay, which one of them really was the 40 goal scorer and which one of them got to play with the 40 goal scorer and so became a 40 goal scorer. And I think that'll, that shifts into money discussions for sure. You don't seem to think Duchene's going to repeat this past season again coming up?
I think it's unlikely.
Oh, killing me.
I would love it if he did. But he shot super well last year. I think it was one of the best years of his career in shooting. He's never scored 40 goals. I think he could recreate the points. But I don't know if he could recreate the goals, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I don't think Matt Duchene is a 40 goal scorer every year. But I do think that he could be a consistent 30 goal guy with Granlund and Forsberg. And of course I would love for him to prove me wrong. Like just, he could score 40 goals for the rest of his contract. Go ahead and do that. Make me look like an idiot. But as from a kind of look back and post-mortem on the season, look at it, I don't think he's going to get there every year. I think there could be a year or two in there that's sprinkled in where he could get back there, but other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's consistent is probably what the answer would be there.
How much of the squawking and kind of negative vibe about Matt Duchene's contract do you think came from the fact that the Predators got rid of PK Subban to free up money? Do you think that plays into any of that? Or do you just think it's a dollar amount that had people kind of about Duchene's contract?
I'm sure it was a little bit of both. PK Subban was huge for this Preds franchise, and he's not the player he used to be. And, you could kind of see that in his kind of last year with Nashville, especially. He dealt with injuries and all this other problems. But I also think, it does have to do with the fact that you brought in this, high value free agent that scored 30 goals, 70 points with Ottawa and Columbus in his free agent year. And he pooped the bed. For the first couple seasons, he was not good. The underlying numbers were in his favor, which is why I was a fan of him. But, if you don't produce points, then it doesn't matter. I could sit here and talk to you about his analytics all day, but if he's not producing numbers in the stat sheet, then it doesn't matter. And I think a lot of it had to do with his line mates. I mean, as much as I enjoy as much as I enjoyed watching him with Brad Richardson and Eric Howlett on a line, it was, it wasn't enough. Which is why I'm so glad that he's finally got a consistent time with Granlund and Forsberg, because you could see him kind of come into his own. But I think it's a little bit of both. Subban being the defenseman he was for the Predators, and then Duchene being the high value guy that didn't live up to what he was supposed to be in his first couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you can co-write my book with me about why Matt Duchene was vilified for no good reason.
I will absolutely do that. I will absolutely do that.
Another big contract, Ryan Johansen. So he signed an 8-year, $64 million contract in July of 2017, AAV of $8 million. He was coming off of that Stanley Cup run where he was just such a big part that year of the team's success, injured in the playoffs. And, so that was a whole thing. In 2016-17, he was tied for first in points with Victor Arvidsson. He led the team with 47 assists. He had a big year. Timing is everything when you're making these contracts. But this one seems to have soured for a lot of people pretty quickly. How do you feel about Ryan Johansen's contract? Overpaid, underpaid? You feel like they got it just right?
I think, I like you said, timing is everything with this. Like, it's why guys have great years before they hit free agency is because they want their money, and they know that people are going to sign them because they're really good players. I think Ryan Johansen is in a weird spot. He's being outproduced by Matt Duchene for the most part. He's not really a true number one center, but he's a guy that could be one. I think this year he looked, Johansen this year looked, I was impressed with him. Like, I thought he had a really good year. And I think that him and Duchene both had years where people were a little less concerned about the contract value, which I think at the very least, that's what you need Johansen to have a year or years for the rest of his contract where nobody is being like, this guy's getting paid $8 million. Like, you don't have people going up and watching and, cap friendly watching and, reading their stats and kind of looking at their contract value. And I think, Johansen's in that, weird spot where I don't think he's gonna improve a ton. I think we've seen Ryan Johansen close to his best. Obviously, he could have a crazy year next year, but I think Ryan Johansen at what we've seen is a perfectly good player. Like, I enjoyed watching Ryan Johansen last year. I had no problems with how he performed. I don't think he's an $8 million player, but at the same time, I'm not worried about him at all.
Right. I think too, when you look at contracts like Duchene and Johansen's especially, and we saw this in the Seattle expansion draft, I think sometimes people are not only frustrated with the amount of money versus performance, but also the amount of money versus can you move this contract? And we saw in the expansion draft here, you had Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansen just sitting there, just waiting. And they took Calle Yarncroke. So I think that may be a part of the rub with the contracts like Duchene's and Johansen's too, as far as, they're just not very movable. So we've talked about some of the big contract players. Coming up, we're going to look at some of the smaller contracts on the Nashville Predators payroll and decide whether those players are overpaid or underpaid. But first, want to let you know this episode's brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Built has done it again, folks. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, now is the time because they have a terrific new flavor, cookie dough chunk puffs. That's right. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. So you have all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, and it's actually healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. What's great about Built is that all of their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it provides tons of health benefits. You can eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You are going to love these cookie dough chunk puffs. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or you just need to grab a quick bite on the go, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. You can ditch the calories, the fat, and the sugar and grab yourself a Built bar. Go to built.com. You can use our promo code LOCKED15 and you can get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So we have players like Carrier, Fabro, and even new Predator Ryan McDonald. So are those guys overpaid? We're going to dive into those contracts next. We talked about contracts and moving contracts. The Predators brought in Ryan McDonald, $6.75 million AAV next season. Do you think there is anything that McDonald can do on the ice that is going to convince fans that he is worth that kind of money? Or do you think this is going to be one of those contracts that rubs fans the wrong way?
I think, Ryan McDonald is he's really good. Like, he's going to be a good second pair defenseman or even first pair. I mean, him and Roman Josi on a pair would be crazy fun. I don't think a 33-year-old Mcdonald is worth that money. I don't think he will be ever for the rest of his contract. But that's not to say that he can't provide plenty of value. I think that, a 33-year-old Ryan McDonald is not a $6 million player, but I would be content with him being a $4 million player. Like I can kind of accept that he's at the stage in his career where he's not going to live up to that contract, or, he's going to have one more year where he might, and the rest of it he doesn't.
Yeah.
But, I think, he's won Stanley Cups. He's a big body that, he has veteran leadership. He hits people. He plays solid defense by all accounts. He's not a complete black hole on offense. Like, he's a good two-way defenseman that I think the Predators needed to shore up the top four. And, they didn't. I think the big thing here is the Predators didn't trade anything for him. Like, they gave up pennies for him. And as much as I don't like the contract, I can accept that it's not like they gave up tons of value for a 33-year-old defenseman making $6 million a year.
Let's talk Dante Fabro. So $2.4 million, 2-year deal. So this is a name that's been brought up. I've heard, kind of suggestions about he could be a good trade piece, freeing up a little bit of cap space. I don't know. Do you feel like Dante Fabro overpaid, underpaid? Do you feel like 2.4 million is pretty accurate for his contributions?
I think if he has a year, I think 2.4 million is fine for him. Last year, looking at analytics and kind of watching his game film, I was mostly impressed. Obviously, he did a lot of Dante Fabro things where he just kind of lost the puck, or little stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, he was a pretty solid defenseman. And I think that 2.4 million is I think Fabro is one of those guys that would make 2.4 million look good as he progresses. It's not going to be he comes on the scene and scores a bunch of points and plays good defense and whatever. And we've seen that. Dante Fabro is not that guy right now.
Right. But
that's not to say that he couldn't be worth more than 2.4, in a year or two. But I think if he keeps this kind of gradual development continuing, I wouldn't have a problem paying him $2.4 million.
Yeah. And, Brian Baston did teach me that plus minus is a total hoax stat, but I'm going to quote it anyway, because he did have his best year was plus 13 for the Predators, which, defensively, that's great. And I do love you're referencing the Dante Fabroisms. We all know what those look like in games.
Those centerized turnovers that lead to breakaways or, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, bless his heart.
Yeah.
Okay. Another young one, Alexander Carrier. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on him. 3-year, $2.2 million total deal. How do you feel about his value for the price for the Predators?
So I like Alexander Carrier better than I like Dante Fabro.
Come on. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
I think I like that value a lot. I know there are people in the Nashville media market who don't like Alexander Carrier at all, which shocks me. But he showed last year that he can be a completely capable top 4, top pair defenseman. He did. There were very rare times where I was like, oh, that's a really bad mistake. Like he, like every rookie defenseman does, he makes mistakes, but at the same time, he would make up for those mistakes. And it would be like, he impressed me a lot, not only because he's a smaller guy playing physical, but also because he moves the puck well, and he was given a lot of responsibility next to Roman Josi, and
Yes.
just took the reins and just went with it. Like I was sincerely impressed with him.
Yeah.
And so I think that value is like perfect. Like I mean, I would love to be paying Alexander Carrier $2.2 million per year. And, like I think as he gets more NHL experience, he's going to become worth way more than that. I have
Yeah,
no doubt.
I agree with you. I think at this point where his game is, he is underpaid. My husband and I go rounds about Matt Duchene. We've started going rounds about Alexander Carrier because I'm with you. I think he is a really good defenseman. And I think part of his value comes in the fact that you can put him out there with Roman Josi, and Roman Josi can do Josi things, and you don't have to be super stressed about it because Carrier plays really responsible. So I agree with you. I think he is one of the most chronically underpaid Nashville Predators. All right, Jeff, I want to thank you for coming on and talking overpay, underpay. I just want to say for the record, you are chronically underpaid for your amazing work. Where can people find your work online, and where can they find you online?
Yeah. So my Twitter is at JJMid04. I tweet about everything. So you'll get all sorts of stuff on there. You can find me at so many different SB Nation sites. I write about the Preds, the Red Wings, the Avalanche, the Flyers, and the Wild. And that's just hockey. I dabble in the baseball world as well, writing about the Yankees. Yeah, so you guys can find me on those sites, and that's my social is JJMid04. So,
yeah. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'd love to know, who do you think are the most overpaid and underpaid Nashville Predators? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Reach out to us on social media. You can find the podcast on Twitter at LO_Predators. You can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice. And of course, you can find the podcast on YouTube. Just drop a comment. Let us know, who are your overpaid and underpaid Predators? That's going to do it for us today at Locked On Predators. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back with more episodes later in the week. Have a great day.